Hello, this is Kurt Wahlner. I've chosen the East Room to be my next drawing because I figure it will be easy. It's only one big room after all, right? It's a lot more than that. It has a very long, torturous history. When John Adams moved in during the final days of his term, the East Room was 3 walls of brick and one of Lord knows what. No paneling, no fancy floor, nothing. They like to say that the wash was hung out to dry there. Thomas Jefferson used the room for storage until his protege Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark needed some place to set up and prepare for his expedition. So some temporary walls were thrown across the southern end of the room, and there you are. James Madison had the space plastered for the first time, and it became his cabinet room. Andrew Jackson had the room paneled for the first time in 1829. In 1845, James Polk wanted to set the room up as a ballroom, so it probably looked as it does in this 1858 engraving. The first photographs we have of the East Room were taken during the Lincoln administration. His funeral service was held here in 1865. Since Ulysses S. Grant's only daughter Nellie would have a White House wedding, the room was redecorated for the event. You could call it the Gilded Age style, and you would not be far off the mark. President Chester A. Arthur's good friend was the father of Louis Comfort Tiffany, who was asked to remodel much of the White House, including the East Room. Dig that ceiling. The East Room we know today is primarily the work of Charles McKim of the well-known architecture firm McKim, Mead & White, and was done for Theodore Roosevelt in 1902. Those chandeliers look familiar, but don't be fooled. These were felt to be too big, so smaller ones were made, and made even smaller still. These are the ones that we know today. The East Room, as well as the rest of the White House, was taken apart during the Truman administration in order to steel reinforce the building. But they didn't have time to carefully reinstall all the paneling that they removed from 1902. It was easier to rebuild it all, and this is the room as it is today. Great big box. 79 by 37 by 18 feet tall. So let's see how we can make this great big box of a room look interesting. So because the East Room is a great big box, I have 2 options. I can lift the top of the box off, which I'm going to be doing a lot of in this series of drawings, so I'm kind of hesitant. Or I can cut the walls out. And in cutting the walls out, this is my fanciful way of letting people see the inside. An X-Acto knife might not have been the best thing to use in this particular occasion, but it'll get the job done. And then you can take the walls out and show the room from the side. I like this because then the obliqueness of the floor is shown, and in order to show more of the ceiling, you can kind of cheat the perspectives so that you're showing the ceiling more. So the East Room has no furniture in it, usually. They keep it empty. Empty box. So how can I make it more interesting? I'm going to show the 2 far walls and the ceiling and the floor, which are, very interesting, but I need something additional. So what I thought that I would do is pull in the big Steinway piano that they gave to FDR in 1938 and arrange it on a dais surrounded by chairs as though it were a piano recital. So that's what I want to do, piano recital. In my usual methodical way, I have to figure out exactly where all the chairs go. And so I've arranged them in a semicircular pattern around the piano. The Steinway is usually in the entrance hall, but I figure that they can push it through the double doors of the East Room for piano recital. And the other thing that we have to get accustomed to is the chairs that they use on these occasions, which are these interesting gold-colored plastic resin chairs that they must have by the truckload down in the basement someplace. Bring these up in the elevator and set them out. I've drawn in the walls and the foreground architectural details and just the back walls so you can get kind of the idea of what the box is. And then we sketch in the piano itself up on the dais. It's much bigger than I thought it was. It's like 19 feet long. It's crazy. Anyway, and then after that, we start putting in the footprints of the chairs in their rows in dimensionalized space on the floor, and then also the top of the chairs. So I have an idea of like where the legs of the chairs go and where the top of the chairs go, and then we'll move on to the next exciting phase. So how do we draw a forest of chairs with all of their legs and rungs and so on and so forth? And believe it or not, the easiest way for me to handle that is to draw in pencil, do a pencil of each row individually, and that way I can layer them on top of one another and draw the things that are behind. You'll see. The first step is to retrace all of the rows onto a separate sheet of paper, and then begin to draw separately each individual row. I'm only concentrating on doing sort of wireframe approximations of what the chairs look like. Once all of the individual rows are drawn on separate sheets, I can layer them all together and kind of get a sense of what the overall sweep of the thing is going to be. But this gives you a general idea of how all of the chairs will look together. Now the fun begins. I take my sketch of row A, the front row, and then put that underneath the drawing of the room with the piano, and trace in that. Since there's nothing in the way of it except for the piano and the dais, I can draw that in unobstructed. Fun! Things will get more fun. Take the sketch for row B, hope you can see that, and take that into position on the back of this thing, tape it down, and start tracing what you can see of row B through row A. And as you can see, this gets very, very, very confusing very quickly, but one has to remember that I'll be rendering this from front to back, so I'll render row A, and then what I can see through row A will become row B, and so on and so forth until we get to the back. Incredible as it may seem, all of these little pencil lines for the chairs, I have an idea of what I can do with them. Another thing that gets done underneath the chairs is the elaborate floor of the East Room. It's at this point in the proceedings that I begin to wonder whether I'm truly insane or not. Keeping track of all of these little vertical lines and so on is going to be a nightmare, but if I can pull it off, it's going to be worth it. Another thing that has been really interesting, Donnybrook, is whenever you're trying to draw three or more of the same thing that are receding in perspective, it's a nightmare. And that certainly happened with the chandeliers. You figure that you could draw one and scan it in and then make a printout that's slightly smaller and just trace it. But that doesn't work here because the chandeliers relative to where you're standing, they lift as they get higher, as they get closer to your viewpoint, and they also turn not in space, but you're looking at them from different angles, so they have to be drawn specifically each time. So on our next episode, we're going to color in this monster, see if we can get it done and in a reasonable amount of time. If you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel if you would. Thank you for your attention. Until next time, bye-bye.